the end of time, when the NBA's most inspirational tales are told, Jimmy Butler's story will be right at the top. From being homeless and lightly recruited to earning legendary nicknames like Jimmy Buckets and Jimmy Butler, this is the story of how a two-star recruit became an NBA superstar.
Yeah, they normally call him Jimmy Butler. Tonight we call him Himmy Butler.
Abandoned by his father in infancy and ejected from home by his mother at the age of 13, Jimmy's early life was filled with trauma, rejection, and pain.
My mom kicked me out of my house, to tell the truth, and I bounced in and out of guys' houses in high school.
Without shelter and a guarantee of where his next meal will come from, Jimmy was frustrated. Sometimes he spent the night on a friend's couch, and other times he simply roamed the streets of Tomball. Soon, his grades were crashing faster than a sinking stock, and survival seemed like a distant dream. Amidst these troubles, Jimmy turned to sports for comfort. Like every other boy who grew up in Texas, he was crazy about football, but deep down he knew he didn't stand a chance against the other kids who were much bigger and stronger than him. Plus, he wasn't really a fan of the Texas Sun, so he settled for basketball, a decision that would prove to be the biggest jackpot of his life. Jimmy hit a second jackpot when his friend's mom, Michelle Lambert, agreed to take him in, meaning he finally had a place to call home after 4 years of roaming the streets. After he could now go all in on his NBA dreams while enjoying the love he was deprived of as a kid. Jimmy knew it was a long shot, but he was willing to give everything to make it happen. His sweat, his blood, and just about anything he needed to do to become an NBA player. But despite tearing it up with an average of 19.9 points per game as a senior at Tomball High School, Jimmy didn't receive any Division I offers. So he enrolled at Tyler Junior College and announced himself with a bang.
I remember the first time walking down this bad baby. I knew I ended the game with 33 points. And with that 33 points, I was asking myself, is this real? Can I really score 33 points on a nightly basis? And then the next time I came out, 35 points.
By the end of his freshman season, Jimmy averaged 18.1 points per game, yet he was rated as a two-star guard and the 127th prospect in the country. Although not exactly satisfactory, it was good enough to land him an athletic scholarship at Marquette. Initially, Jimmy had limited playing time, while some of his teammates like Wesley Matthews got all the time in the world to showcase their talents. As if that wasn't bad enough, Coach Buzz Williams and his staff continued to push Jimmy hard in practice, even though they knew he wasn't going to start the next game. This seemed cruel at first, but they had good intentions for him. Apparently, Buzz had seen something in Jimmy that even Jimmy didn't see in himself, and he was willing to go the extra mile to help the player unlock this thing, even if it means dragging him in for extra drills as early as 5 a.m. Unaware of Buzz's plan, Jimmy threatened to quit at the end of each season, but the coach and his crew always managed to convince him to return the next day. And eventually, it paid off. Wesley left for the NBA, clearing Jimmy's path to becoming the #1 option on the team, but he still had to prove himself on the court, and he did just that. After some eye-catching performances and back-to-back All-Big East honorable mention nods, Jimmy declared for the NBA draft. He definitely wasn't at the top of his draft class, but he was confident that someone would take the gamble on him. On draft night, Jimmy watched on as other players were drafted. The event went on, and still there was no mention of his name. But just when he thought it was all over, the Chicago Bulls picked him with the 30th pick in the first round. For most kids, making it to the NBA wouldn't have been enough, but Jimmy was just wired differently. He wanted to make a real splash in the league. However, his first few seasons with the Bulls weren't impressive. To be fair, he was a useful 3-and-D wing player, but he was always in the shadow of guys like Derrick Rose, Carlos Boozer, Joakim Noah, and Luol Deng. So once again, Jimmy was faced with a situation where he had to fight the odds. It was a familiar terrain, and he embraced it just as he had done all his life. When the opportunity to break into the team finally came in the 2014 season, Jimmy grabbed it with both hands. He scored 13.1 points per game and was named to the NBA All-Defensive Second Team. But his offense wasn't that great, and for the type of player he was trying to become, he needed to be good at both ends of the court. So in the summer of 2014, Jimmy made the short trip back to Tomball, the very place where his basketball career started. By the time he returned to Miami for the 2015 season, he was a different player both physically and mentally. He transformed into one of the strongest and toughest guys in the league. We started to see significant improvement in his offense. At the end of the season, Jimmy averaged 20 points per game and earned a roster spot in the All-Star game. And thanks to his postseason average of 22.9 points, the Bulls dumped the Milwaukee Bucks in the first round before losing to the Cavs in round 2. Jimmy earned the Most Improved Player of the Year award. Fast forward to 2016, Jimmy posted 20.9 points during the regular season, but unfortunately, the Bulls missed out on the playoffs. In 2017, Jimmy Buckets continued to deliver the goods, averaging 23.9 points during the regular season and 22.7 points in the postseason as the Bulls fell to defeat once again in the playoffs. This obviously didn't go down well with Jimmy. He felt like the organization wasn't ready to compete, so he jumped ship to the Minnesota Timberwolves. There, he showed the qualities of a superstar, guiding the Wolves to the playoffs for the first time in 14 years. But he was put off by the laid-back attitude of his teammates, who cared more about themselves than the team. "I put so much into this game, and I only play to win," Jimmy said. "I don't play for any individual stats or accolades. And at times, I get lost in how everybody's not built the way that I'm built. Sometimes I just look around, and I don't understand how or why you all don't love to get better the way that I do." Despite multiple complaints, the situation didn't really change, so Jimmy moved to the Philadelphia 76ers, where he'd spend just one season. As he did with the Wolves, Jimmy carried the Sixers to the playoffs. But both parties never really seemed to be on the same page, so Jimmy moved again, this time to the Miami Heat. Jimmy and the Heat were a match made in heaven. The team was largely made up of rugged and highly competitive players, which is something that Jimmy had been looking for since his days at the Chicago Bulls. Also, the atmosphere around the team helped Jimmy to evolve into a dynamic player with better playing skills and scoring versatility. Jimmy emerged as the focal point of the team, stepping up at clutch moments, especially in the playoffs. In his first season for the team, Jimmy led the Heat to the NBA Finals, beating the Milwaukee Bucks and Boston Celtics along the way. Since it was the first NBA Finals of his career, Jimmy was keen to make a big statement. In Game 3, he posted 40 points, 13 assists, and 11 rebounds, becoming only the third player to record a 40-plus point triple-double in the NBA Finals after LeBron James and Jerry West. He also became the second player to lead his team in points, rebounds, assists, steals, and blocks in a finals series. The Heat eventually lost out to the Lakers, but with an average of 26 points, 9.8 assists, and 8.3 rebounds, Jimmy had successfully won the hearts of the Heat fans. Jimmy was back again in the 2022 playoffs with 8 30-plus games and 4 40-plus games. But unfortunately, he missed the game-winning shot as the Heat were eliminated from the playoffs yet again. Despite being the underdogs, the Heat eliminated a top-seeded Milwaukee Bucks team in the first round of the 2023 playoffs, with Jimmy scoring 56 points in Game 4. This performance remains a franchise record for most points scored in the playoffs and the fourth-best scoring playoff game in NBA history. In the Eastern Conference Finals, Jimmy won the Larry Bird MVP trophy as he led the Heat to a shocking victory over the Celtics. Sadly, the Heat couldn't convert their consistency in the playoffs to an NBA ring as they lost to the Denver Nuggets in the finals. But after watching another postseason masterclass from Jimmy, there's no denying that this once homeless kid from Texas is one of the best clutch-time players in the NBA playoffs and one of the biggest superstars in the league. But there's another lowly rated recruit in the league who has achieved more success than Jimmy Butler, winning 4 NBA rings, 2 scoring titles, and 1 NBA Finals MVP award. So, who exactly is this player? And how did he go from being a 3-star recruit to becoming the greatest shooter in NBA history? Watch this video to find out.